At 9:12 a.m., the judge looked up from the sealed report and said my name, Senior Analyst Phoebe Jensen. No one in that courtroom breathed. My stepbrother's grin disappeared instantly. My mother's hand froze in midair. The same people who once said I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much, had finally run out of words. They thought this was another messy family argument, something that could be smoothed over with apologies and denial. They were wrong. This wasn't personal anymore. This was federal. And this time, there was evidence no one could explain away. Before I tell you how the quiet daughter turned her family's lies into silence, hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from so I know I'm not the only one who's ever had to let truth speak louder than blood. From the outside, we looked perfect, the kind of family people pointed at and said must be nice. A clean house behind a white fence, trimmed hedges, smiling faces, and carefully coordinated holiday photos. My mother, Sandra, curated that image like her life depended on it. She believed peace meant never asking hard questions, and silence meant love. If something ugly happened, you ignored it until it disappeared, or at least until it no longer threatened appearances. My stepfather, Gary, followed her lead, nodding along, avoiding conflict, choosing comfort over truth every time. And then there was Mark, my stepbrother, the center of everything, the golden child, the one they rearranged the world around. At every family dinner, my mom would glow when she talked about him. Mark got another promotion, she'd announce proudly, clapping like she was accepting an award on his behalf. Mark would grin and lift his glass, soaking it in. Assistant sales manager, he'd say with mock humility like it was a crown. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. I'd sit there quietly, cutting my food into neat pieces, shrinking into my chair while they celebrated him. The one time I mentioned I'd completed a federal certification, something only a handful of analysts ever passed, Gary barely looked at me. "That's nice, sweetheart," he said distractedly, his attention still fixed on Mark. "You stick with that little government job, it's safe." Safe. That word always came from people who'd never taken a real risk, never held classified material in their hands, never spent nights locked in a windless room decoding information that could change lives. They had no idea what my work actually meant, and I learned quickly that correcting them was pointless. When you grow up as the extra child in someone else's family, you learn how to disappear gracefully. You learn to speak softly, to smile on cue, to swallow your thoughts before they cause discomfort. My mother preferred me that way. She used to say, "Phoebe, you think too much, just enjoy life." But she was never talking about mine. She meant hers. Every holiday followed the same script. Mark would show up late, sometimes drunk, arms full of excuses. Mom would light up like she'd been waiting all day. "Oh, Mark, I'm just so glad you came." If I arrived late, even once, she'd check her watch and sigh. Being on time says a lot about a person, Phoebe. You can live inside a double standard so long that it starts to feel normal, until one day you realize it's slowly killing you. They didn't hate me, that would have been easier. They simply didn't see me. I was background noise, the responsible one, the one who didn't need praise, didn't cause trouble. They mistook my silence for submission. I used to believe keeping the peace was the right thing, but peace without truth isn't peace, it's paralysis. One memory still burns, a summer barbecue, the year before everything collapsed. Mark stood by the grill, beer in hand, bragging about his promotion. Smoke curled through the air, the smell of charred meat and cheap alcohol clinging to everything. My mother laughed loudly, that carefree laugh she only ever gave him. I tried to share something small, that my team's analysis had stopped an overseas attack. She waved it off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You always make things sound so dramatic, Phoebe. Relax." Dramatic. The word lodged itself under my skin. That night, long after everyone went to bed, I sat on the back porch with a mug of black coffee, staring into the dark yard as fireflies blinked over the grass. In my world, silence saved lives. In that house, silence protected lies. I didn't know it then, but something inside me was changing, settling into something hard and unmovable. The night everything shattered came heavy with heat and the sour smell of whiskey. It was after 4 in the morning when I heard the crash, glass against the counter, followed by Mark's voice, slurred and sharp. I found him in the kitchen under the cold blue glow of the fridge. He turned toward me, smiling wrong. "Couldn't sleep, agent girl? Still think you're better than us?" I kept my voice even. "You've had too much, Mark. You should go to bed." Calm was my mistake. To him, calm was control, and he hated that. He stepped closer, bottle dangling from his fingers. "You think that desk job makes you special? Mom says you hide behind work because no one wants you around." The words cut deep, because they weren't just his, they were hers. I could hear laughter in the other room. They were awake, listening. I turned away, reaching for a towel, anything to end it. That's when I heard the drawer slide open, metal scraping wood. I turned back. The screwdriver was already in his hand. "Mark, stop, put it down." He smiled. "You're so dramatic." Then he lunged. Pain exploded through my shoulder, hot and immediate. My legs gave out. The floor rushed up. Blood soaked my shirt, slick beneath my fingers. And above it all, laughter. My mother's voice drifted in, light and dismissive. "Oh, Mark, for God's sake, she probably slipped. Phoebe, stop being so dramatic." The world spun. Somewhere between pain and disbelief, something inside me detached. I stared at the ceiling and realized how quiet everything gets when you finally stop expecting someone to save you. When I woke up, the room was white and humming. Machines beeped. Antiseptic burned my nose. My shoulder throbbed. Then I heard her voice. "Oh, thank God you're awake." She sat beside my bed, hands folded, rehearsed concern in her eyes. "You fell on the toolbox. Mark feels terrible." I looked at her. She nodded too fast. "You know how clumsy you get when you're tired. No one's fault." That rewrite of reality snapped something clean in me. They weren't protecting me, they were protecting him. I kept my face neutral. Training took over. Observe, assess, control. "Where's Mark?" I asked. "At home," Gary said. "He's been crying all night." Crying. I asked them to leave. They did, satisfied. When the door closed, I reached for my phone and opened the secured line no one in my family knew existed. "This is analyst Phoebe Jensen," I said calmly. "I'm reporting an assault on a federal employee and activating a duress protocol." Confirmation came back immediately. Relief didn't. What came instead was clarity. Hours later, my agency liaison arrived, sharp and focused. "Everything is documented," she said. "We'll let the evidence speak." I nodded. My voice came out calm. "They think this is a family matter." Her lips curved slightly. "Then we'll show them it isn't." As she stood to leave, I caught my reflection again in the dark hospital window, shoulder bandaged, eyes unflinching. For the first time, I didn't feel like the invisible daughter. I felt like a weapon with paperwork to prove it. The courtroom smelled like old paper and stale coffee, the kind of place where truth had to fight for oxygen. Rows of wooden benches creaked as people settled their murmurs, fading when the bailiff called my name. I walked in behind my attorney, Ana Reyes, my posture straight despite the faint ache in my shoulder. Across the aisle sat my mother's stepfather, and Mark. He looked freshly scrubbed, hair neatly parted, tied just a bit too tight. The smirk on his face was small, but it was there. The same one he'd worn the night he drove a screwdriver into my skin. Mom's eyes flicked to mine, filled with something between pity and irritation. To her, this was an embarrassing misunderstanding. She told herself the story so many times she believed it. Anna leaned toward me. "He'll go first," she whispered. "Let him talk himself into a corner." Mark's lawyer, a local type with shiny shoes and a TV commercial grin, rose dramatically. "Your Honor," he began, "this case has been blown completely out of proportion. It's nothing but a family disagreement. Miss Jensen, my client's stepsister, has a history of emotional outbursts and exaggerated claims. Even her own mother will testify that she tends to dramatize." I felt the air leave the room for a second. There it was again, that word dramatic, my mother's legacy to me. The lawyer went on, flipping through his notes with theatrical flair. My client regrets the misunderstanding that led to Miss Jensen's minor injury, but the evidence clearly shows there was no intent to harm. It was an accident. When he finished, he turned toward my family as if expecting applause. My mother nodded approvingly. Gary exhaled like a man unburdened, and Mark sat back with an easy shrug, his hand brushing his tie. Anna didn't move for a beat. Then she stood quietly, deliberately. "Your Honor," she said, "the petitioner would like to enter into evidence Diplomatic Security Service Report number 77B, accompanied by 911 call logs and sworn federal statements." Mark's lawyer laughed under his breath. "Your Honor, this is a domestic dispute, not a federal investigation." The judge, a silver-haired man with weary eyes, raised a brow. "That's quite a claim, counsel. Let's see what this is." Anna handed the sealed folder across. The judge ran his thumb along the edge, noting the official seal before breaking it open. His eyes scanned the first page, then another. The sound of paper shifting filled the silence. His expression changed. First curiosity, then disbelief, and finally something close to anger. "This report," he said slowly, "documents a Level 4 duress protocol activation under the State Department's security framework." He paused, glancing up at Mark. "It states that senior analyst Phoebe Jensen, an employee with federal clearance, transmitted a distress signal at 0405 hours. The system logged her coordinates and immediately dispatched a wellness team." Whispers rippled through the courtroom. The judge kept reading, his voice steadier now, almost mechanical. "Responding paramedics found Miss Jensen semi-conscious on the kitchen floor with a puncture wound consistent with a Phillips head screwdriver. Her blood was present on both the weapon and her clothing. Toxicology reports show Mr. Mark Jensen's blood alcohol content at .16. He lowered the papers, eyes narrowing. "Do you wish to amend your statement, Mr. Jensen?" Mark blinked. His mouth opened, then shut. That's not what," the judge snapped. "Not what happened, or not what you expected to be recorded?" My mother rose halfway from her seat. "Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. Phoebe, she's always been sensitive. The judge cut her off with a raised hand. "Sit down, Mrs. Jensen." The weight of the silence that followed was physical. You could feel it pressing against the walls. Anna's voice broke it softly. "Your Honor, we're not pursuing damages. We simply request that the truth be recognized and that the petitioner be granted a permanent restraining order for her safety." The judge nodded slowly, flipping to the last page of the report. He read something silently, then looked at me. For a brief second, his expression softened, something human behind the authority. "Miss Jensen," he said, "it appears your work may have saved lives in the past. Today, your precision saved your own." He turned back toward my stepbrother. "Based on the evidence before this court, I am granting a permanent restraining order and referring this matter to the district attorney's office for formal felony assault charges. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Jensen from the room." Mark's face went slack, pale. He tried to look at me, to catch some trace of sympathy, but I had none left to give. He stood only because the bailiff helped him to his feet. My mother's voice cracked. "Phoebe, please, he didn't mean to. He's your brother." Anna stepped between us. "That's close enough." Her tone was calm, final. I didn't move, didn't speak. For the first time, I wasn't begging anyone to see me. They were finally looking, and it didn't matter anymore. The bailiff led Mark out, his wrists bound in steel. My mother sobbed quietly. Gary stared at the floor like he was trying to disappear. The judge gathered his papers. "Court adjourned," he said, voice echoing. As people shuffled out, Anna leaned closer. "You did good," she murmured. "I didn't do anything," I said. "I just told the truth where it mattered." We stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off the marble floors. Waiting by the exit were two men in dark suits, my colleagues. One of them, Director Evans, gave a small nod. "Glad you're okay, Jensen. We'll handle the paperwork." "Thank you, sir." That was all we needed to say. In my world, closure came in documents, not hugs. As the car door shut behind him, I looked back at the courthouse one last time. The sun hit the windows, reflecting a flash of white light across the glass, like the final glare of a closing file. For the first time in years, I didn't feel unseen. I felt finished. 1 year later, I stood in a glass-walled briefing room, the city glittering behind me. On the door, PB Jensen, Team Lead, Clandestine Threat Analysis. My team gathered around the console, sharp minds, steady hands, the kind of family you earn, not inherit. A faint scar traced my shoulder, a reminder of the night I stopped asking for approval. That morning, an email from my mother appeared in my inbox, long, apologetic, full of excuses. I didn't open it, I just archived it. Some silences are deliberate. If you've turned betrayal into power, share your story below and hit subscribe.